Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Danny and Bush coming at you with another hot commodities episode. Today we're looking at ADP values by round. We're looking at when you're on the clock in rounds 1 through 6, who should you draft is basically what we're doing. Instead of doing a mock draft where we show you who we would draft and whatnot, we're going to give you basically, I don't know, top 3, 4 guys in each round of best ball ADP per Fantasy Pros right now. Who do we like? Who's undervalued in those regions? It could be as simple as Christian McCaffrey is undervalued at the 101, as crazy as that sounds. Danny, how you doing today before we hit this intro?
Doing well, doing well. Again, you just mentioned McCaffrey. As soon as we were about to start making our notes for this video, I asked us, I'm like, can I do McCaffrey? It's just when I look at it, obviously for me, he's the biggest value of the entire first round, just because I believe he's just such a tier above everyone.
Yeah.
But the thing is it's not like we can get any more value than the 101.
No, of course not. If you get him anywhere other than the 101, like whoever just picked Saquon or Zeke at the 101 is like actually stupid as shit. Like they shouldn't even be playing fantasy football. So let's hit the intro and then we'll see you guys on the other side.
Are you ready, Jerry?
I'm ready.
Just want to make sure you're ready, brother.
Show me the money.
All right, so as I said, we're going over ADP values by round. We're going over who should you draft, rounds 1 through 6. So we're going to start off with round 1. We'll put the ADP on the screen right now. So this is currently how the first round is shaking out. And to be honest, this was hard to pick from because the guys at the bottom, Devante Adams, Miles Sanders, Kenyon Drake, and Nick Chubb, I don't think any of them should go in the first round personally. So I chose Alvin Kamara and as one of the guys that I think is undervalued because at the 106, to me, over Mike, I have Alvin Kamara currently ranked as my number 4 overall player and my number 4 running back. And I would pick him over Dalvin Cook and I would pick him over Michael Thomas. Obviously, there's positive touchdown regression coming for Alvin Kamara. Last year at this time, everyone was like, he's not going to score 18 touchdowns again. Well, he literally scored a third of that. He scored 6 touchdowns last year. He averages 15 and a half for the previous 2 years of his career. So you'll probably see him this year get back up into that like 13 to 15 range in terms of rushing plus receiving touchdowns.
Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, the touchdowns were the biggest concern of Kamara last year. That was simply due to, again, he was hobbled by the injuries. He faced bad luck when it came to the goal line, being able to punch it in. And in general, I mean, if people are worried about the opportunity, Latavius is a big back, that's the reason he didn't have it. But actually look at it. I mean, Kamara's red zone usage basically stayed the status quo when they had Latavius Murray in the lineup. It was just a matter of Kamara's health mostly last year. Again, he said it recently in tweets that he was only basically playing at about 75% anyways. And he wouldn't have a reason to lie about that. He wouldn't just say it to say it. Why would a player want to disclose an injury if there wasn't actually one? So, I mean, what you're getting with Kamara, you're getting a guy who's going to have a high touchdown ceiling and floor. And in general, I mean, 81 receptions over his last 3 seasons. He's just shown that he's very versatile and very capable of having a huge receiving load as well. So getting Kamara where you're currently getting him in the middle of the first round, I mean, he just shouldn't be dropping past the top 4. Agree. Again, as you mentioned, I agree with that. He should be going ahead of Dalvin Cook. Again, contractual issues, injury issues. And Michael Thomas, again, nothing against Michael Thomas. It's just the scarcity of the running backs at the top, especially guys like Kamara. I'd much prefer locking down a Kamara and then take my chances at round 2 or 3 with the top receiver rather than just getting MT and seeing who falls to me at the running back position.
Yeah, for sure. Kamara's special. He's a special player. I think he just had a lot of bad luck. As you mentioned, the injury to himself. Also the injury to Breeze, too, because I don't remember how, I'm pretty sure they were both injured around the same time, him and Breeze, but just the offense in general, it didn't struggle. It was still a top, 6 offense in the league. But I think if everyone's healthy, and that's obviously a big if, it's football, people get injured all the time, but if Breeze and Thomas and Kamara, the main 3 guys in that offense, and their offensive line's able to stay healthy this year, I think they're in for a bounce back year, and I think this is going to be one of the best offenses in the league again. Derrick Henry is also who I had listed as another value of this round, and he's going at pick 7. So I mean, some people might be surprised by that, but I think he's a value. But again, I would pick him over Dalvin Cook and Michael Thomas. I think Derrick Henry right now is currently my 105. If I have the 105 and the top 4 guys, McCaffrey, Barkley, Zeke, and Kamara off the board, I'm picking Derrick Henry over Dalvin Cook and over Michael Thomas. Over Dalvin Cook because, I mean, Derrick Henry's a lock for 300 carries. He's going to have 10-plus touchdowns. He might even have 18 touchdowns at his most. He's never had a problem holding up to that kind of workload too. Dalvin Cook has, and Michael Thomas is just a position scarcity thing. Plus, weekly upside, Michael Thomas is like good, but he doesn't give you 40-point weeks like Derrick Henry does.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Again, it's a little closer if you're talking like a full PPR format. But again, the thing I subscribe to is if you have a workhorse running back like a Derrick Henry on the board here, who comparatively to Dalvin Cook, who presents the kind of injury concerns, I would just prefer locking down Derrick Henry. The baseline you're going to get. He's going to get 300 carries. He's going to get probably around 1,500 rushing yards. And man, you said 10 touchdowns, and that might even be underselling it. I wouldn't be surprised.
I think he's a lock for 10. Like I think 10 is his floor.
I think he might even get again to around the 15 range. Just the way Tennessee uses him. And again, he's never going to be a guy where you expect him to be able to produce with a huge receiving role. If he gets out of receiving work, which I mean, that's hard to project. You can't really project that. Mm-hmm. That's good, but ultimately, he's a guy that he doesn't need to have a huge receiving floor to be able to give you that upside, simply because what he does on the ground.
Yeah, unless Tennessee is getting blown out, from the jump of the game, they're getting hung 21 points on them, they're going to use Derrick Henry whether they're winning or losing, in my opinion, unless they're getting absolutely killed, which I don't think is going to happen very often because they have a good defense and they're a good team in general. So maybe there's one outlier game this year where he gets phased out because the game script is just terrible, but there might not even be one game because Tennessee's a good team. So do you have another guy or
Well, I just wanted to quickly touch up upon it. I was going to mention that. These were the two guys me and Corey kind of collectively agreed to in this first round. We're going to, as we go through rounds 2 to 6, we'll have different guys that we'll both bring up. But ultimately, again, Corey wrote down these two names. I tried to look at through the rest of the round. I like Miles Sanders, but I probably wouldn't pick him higher than he's already listed right now. So ultimately here, we're talking about values. I would take Derrick Henry above the Michael Thomas and the Dalvin Cook. And I would take Alvin Kamara above those two as well. So ultimately here, if they're going lower than where we would personally take them, that presents value. Whereas Sanders, I'd feel comfortable probably taking him no higher than 10. Just simply because the receivers on the board, as Corey's going to mention in the second round, some of these receivers that should be going in the first are getting pushed down because of the scarcity at the position. So there's going to be, as we'll see in the third and the fourth, there's going to be average running backs going against top-end receivers. So stay tuned because that'll be fun to break down.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll get into round 2 right now. This will be on the screen right now. This is the ADP currently from picks 13 to 24. And to me, the obvious one to me is Julio Jones. The fact that Julio Jones is not a first-round pick is a complete joke to me. I don't even understand why. Like you said, Miles Sanders, I like Miles Sanders. There's no fucking way I would pick him over Julio Jones because, the offense is going to throw 600-plus times. They throw at one of the highest clips in the red zone. I know Julio can't score touchdowns, but he has the opportunity to score touchdowns, so that's an irrelevant thing. They have a bad defense. They're going to have an ineffective run game. He has an elite connection with his quarterback going 8+ years. He's a lock for 160+ targets. He's a lock for 1,400 yards. He's a lock for 5+ touchdowns. If he plays 16 games, which honestly hasn't even been an issue for him in the past couple of years. Danny forgot his mic again, which usually happens.
I had it. It was just pushed over. So how did I sound for the first
you sounded fine. You sounded fine. But,
right.
Okay, Julio Jones to me going behind guys like freaking Aaron Jones. I love Austin Ekeler. I can't pick him over Julio Jones. Or actually, no, I do have him. I would pick him actually over Julio Jones. But DeAndre Hopkins, Tyreek Hill, Josh Jacobs, he's going Julio Jones needs to be the 110 to 112. He's probably the safest pick in the entire first round.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I love Julio Jones. Getting him again, we got him in a best ball draft at the 206 or 207 yesterday.
Yeah,
that would have been the 208. That's insane. Getting him where he's currently going is insane. Another guy that we'll segue into that we've hyped up on this channel repeatedly. We will keep pounding the table until this guy gets his respect as a first-round running back, and that will be Austin Ekeler of the Los Angeles Chargers. I almost fucked up there. I almost called him San Diego, but it's just baffling to me that the fantasy community is allowing him to fall to the mid-second round or the RB12 off the board. But again, give me that value all day, because it's just insane. You're getting a guy who typically in fantasy football, you want guys with opportunity that have talent that ultimately get receiving work. That's what you look for in your running backs. Austin Ekeler provides all three of those. So, again, people are saying, he doesn't have Melvin Gordon. We'll see how he holds up. Well, how he held up last year was without Melvin Gordon. He was the RB2. And with Melvin Gordon, he was the RB10. So how is he going off as a 12th running back? So
you just add them together, right?
It's just.
Yeah, no. Anyone who says that like he did most of his damage without Melvin Gordon. It's like Melvin Gordon isn't there now, guys. Like I don't understand why people use that as a valid reason not to like Austin Ekeler, because Melvin Gordon isn't there. If you like Josh Kelly, that's fine, but he's a 4th round pick for a reason. They traded their 2nd and 3rd round pick to go up and get an inside linebacker for a reason. If they thought running back was some huge need, they wouldn't have traded up for Kenneth Murray. They would have stand pat and drafted Jonathan Taylor, drafted J.K. Dobbins, drafted Cam Akers. They didn't do any of that because they know Austin Ekeler is good enough to carry the load. They have Justin Jackson. They have Josh Kelly. Take away some of the bullshit carries that Austin Ekeler doesn't get. Austin Ekeler is going to get the 3 most valuable things in the offense. He's going to get the receiving work, he's going to get the goal line carries, and he's going to get the bulk of the rushing work. So I don't even understand why he's not a first-round pick. I would pick him 7th overall is where I have him ranked on my board.
Yeah, I have him at 9 right now, I believe, and even that, I just feel low. Like, I love Austin Ekeler, and the fact is he's currently going off as the RB12. I mean, we'll touch up upon him a little bit more in this Saturday's ADP battles, so stay tuned. Have a special guest on there. You guys will definitely enjoy that. But we'll have Austin Ekeler in that discussion, and we'll come at you with the big facts there. So stay tuned. But Austin Ekeler going mid-second round, typical value. So snag that up right now if you guys are doing any best balls.
For sure. And this is a guy I've tooted the horn for as well. As you see, where he's going in the draft is also pretty criminal. To me, Josh Jacobs going at 17 is ridiculous because I said Austin Ekeler's at 7. I have Jacobs like right there too. Like he's in that same range for me. He also should be a first rounder. I think he should be a top 10 pick. He's basically Derrick Henry light, in my opinion. I think he's going to get 300 carries. He was on pace for 300 carries last year. And I think he's also has a chance to see an uptick in receiving work, as I've mentioned in previous videos. Dating back to John Gruden's usage of Cadillac Williams and stuff. Now with Lynn Bowden dealing with some kind of off-the-field situation, who was a concern for Jacobs' receiving floor based on the guys that they brought in with Richard and Booker and Bowden. If Bowden's not going to be there, that helps Jacobs a little bit. The offensive line's elite. Like run blocking offensive line is one of the best in the league. It's as good as the Colts. It's as good as the Saints. Like it's really freaking good. The offense should be improved in general, like more scoring, more spread out guys with Ruggs and Waller, and even Renfro's a solid piece. Like he owns the goal line. Like they're not giving the ball to Jalen Richard on the goal line. Like Josh Jacobs is getting all the goal line carries. So I mean, he's also one of the best running backs in the league just from a pure talent perspective. He was last year, his rookie season, from coming from a school where he was not the workhorse running back, he had the most elusive running back season in PFF history.
Yeah, I mean that's insanity too. I've mentioned it previously. Again, I really like Josh Jacobs. I mean, the thing that people are going to be concerned with would be the receiving work. But again, as we mentioned with Henry, when you're a guy that's a shoo-in for top 5 in the league in rushing, I mean, it doesn't matter nearly as much as say a guy like fucking just name it, like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. If he didn't have receiving work, for example, like he'd take a hit. But with the Josh Jacobs, again, he's going to get that workload. He's going to get a huge amount of carries on this team. So, again, you're getting him at the mid-second round. Considering how scarce the position is, I'm surprised he's not the one of the guys being pushed up. So, I definitely
I'm really shocked by that because, like, he was super good, too. I think it's just because he got injured at the end of the year. Like, had he not gotten injured than that, like, why is Miles Sanders going ahead of him? Is my question. Because Miles Sanders was, like everyone loves Miles Sanders, and I understand why. It's because he gets receiving work, and that's why people would favor him over Jacobs. But Jacobs would have won Rookie of the Year last year had he stayed healthy the whole year. Like I just don't understand why he's going so late. I would pick him ahead of a lot of these guys, ahead of Chubb, ahead of Mixon, ahead of Drake, ahead of Sanders. Like, give me all the Josh Jacobs next year.
I mean, they're close to me. I mean, they're both in the same tier. I think I have Sanders at 7 and Jacobs at like 10, I believe. But ultimately with Sanders, what gives me a little more hope is I do think that the offense in general is going to be better. And in general, I do believe that Sanders is going to take that next step in ultimately getting a larger volume, what's called baseline. And if he's able to do that, I do think the receiving work's going to be in line. He's going to have similar touchdown upside. And ultimately, I believe in Sanders to be able to carry that a little bit more than Jacobs. But again, same tier. Receiving work's the ultimate decider for me, but you pick and choose here. Both are stud second-year backs that can ultimately present great value for you. So I like both.
All right, let's dig into round 3 here. We got I'll have that up on the screen as well. And to me, I mean, this, you call me a homer all you want, but Mike Evans is undervalued. The narrative that has always followed Mike Evans throughout his career is that he's so good, even though he has Jameis Winston as his quarterback, or like he's so good despite being on a bad team. Like, the team is not bad anymore. They're not going to be a bad team next year, as much as many people think they're going to be the 2019 Browns or not. He has Tom Brady, and his ADP went down. Like, that to me doesn't make any sense. This is still Arians' system. They're not bringing in New England's system. I don't know where people are getting this idea. You think it's easier to teach
Scotty Miller, bro?
Yeah, do you think it's easier to teach 20 guys on offense one system, or to teach this one of the smartest quarterbacks of all time one system? Like, it's way easier to teach Tom Brady Bruce Arians' system than to teach Tom Brady's system to the whole team. So Mike Evans is going to have the same role. He's going to be with Tom Brady, who's a much better deep passer than Jameis Winston. I know his arm strength isn't as good. Jameis Winston's not a good deep passer. He's not accurate. He had 81 of his 118 targets last year in 12.25 games that Mike Evans played were deemed catchable, which ranked 95th in the NFL. So Mike Evans also was 4th in the league in deep targets. So most of those targets were probably deep balls that Jameis missed. I'm a Bucs fan. I saw him miss a lot of deep balls on Evans. Evans dropped a couple, but some of them were just flat out missed. So the red zone opportunities is another big thing for Mike Evans, because early in Mike Evans' career, he was a big-time touchdown guy, and I expect that to go back up this year. And the reason is because I think in the past year or two, he's been the primary focus of defenses in the red zone because, one, we couldn't run the ball in the red zone, which I think we're going to be better at this year, and two, there was no Rob Gronkowski in the red zone, which there is now, and Chris Godwin hadn't established himself. So I think between those three receiving options and Jones and Vaughn in the backfield running the ball, I think the red zone offense is going to open up enough to the point that Evans is not going to see double coverage on every red zone snap that he gets. And I think it's very easy to project that Mike Evans has double-digit touchdowns in 2020. He ranked 17th last year in red zone targets, like I said, in just 12 and a bit games because he went down early in the Colts game in Week 13. And he had 17 red zone. He ranked 17th in red zone targets despite only playing 12 games.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you're talking about Evans, again, when it comes to talent, I know you have him in the top 5. He's probably in around the 6 or 7 range for me personally as well. He's just a guy that always gets swept under the rug for God knows why. Because when he's on his game, man, he presents legitimate top 40-point, 45-point type upside. And ultimately here, he was playing banged up, and he was still fantastic in the games he did play. I mean, one goose egg is going to really get on people's minds for some reason.
I think Brady helps with that too, because he is an inconsistent player. I understand that he's a deep threat, on the team. That's his role. But a lot, some of those goose egg games, he'd have 6 or 7 targets. It's just Jameis is not accurate. And I support Jameis Winston, but he's not an accurate quarterback. Brady's much more accurate than he is, even if you think Brady's declining or whatever. So some of those goose egg games that Mike Evans might have put up, he might put up 40 yards instead of putting up a goose egg with Tom Brady instead of Jameis.
For sure. I mean, I was a big fan of Evans last year as well. I still am this year. I picked Evans in 301 in one of my drafts and felt that was a steal. So the fact that you're getting him even later now.
That doesn't make sense.
7. What'd you say, the 306, 307 or so? I think?
Yeah, 307 is where he's going.
That's insane. He's literally only gotten an upgrade at quarterback, yet people want to buy into this narrative Brady targets a small white slot receiver.
In the Patriots system he does. He's not running New England system. I don't know why people keep thinking this.
Yeah, I mean, the last time we saw him with a talent like Mike Evans, that guy was able to put up, 23 touchdowns?
Yeah, yeah, literally. I think Mike Evans could have a 15 touchdown season. His ceiling is to have 70 catches for 1,400 yards and 15 touchdowns. He could just have some monster plays that win you crazy weeks where he's throwing up 40 points a game.
For sure. Oddly enough, don't you notice the 3 best values of these first 3 rounds we actually got in our mock draft or our best ball draft yesterday? So
yeah,
go link down that. It would be 2 days ago, when this video goes up. So make sure you watch that video. We did a draft on Drafters, new affiliate. But aside from that, we'll get into all that another time. My biggest value of this round is DJ Moore, wide receiver from the Carolina Panthers. I mean, to me, this is a no-brainer. I'm all aboard the DJ Moore hype train. I've been hyping him up basically since the season ended last year. The fact that people still aren't able to recognize his value is insane to me. Recently talked about him again in an ADP Battles video with Ryan McGinley of Bootleg Fantasy, Climb the Pocket. So make sure you check that out on the channel. But going back into DJ Moore, his current ADP of 31 is just downright ridiculous. I mean, he's going after Odell Beckham, Patrick Mahomes, Melvin Gordon, Todd Gurley. And just in general, you're getting a locked and loaded PPR monster in the middle of the third round. So to me, with DJ Moore, what is there not to like? He's a young, talented receiver coming off a second-year breakout with improvements on the coaching staff and at the quarterback position. He had 87 catches in basically 14 games. His 15th game, again, he basically played in the first quarter, caught one pass, and left with an injury. So he was able to produce, again, 87 catches, 1,175 yards, and 4 touchdowns, and what was basically 14 games in his second year in the league. So, again, you're projecting forward. He has legitimate top 5 receiver upside. If he's able to gain that rapport with Teddy Bridgewater, we saw what Michael Thomas was able to do. I brought the stats on the screen in that video on Saturday. It's just insane. Michael Thomas produced with both Drew Brees, and it didn't really fall off with Teddy Bridgewater. Again, I'm not calling DJ Moore Michael Thomas, but he's going to play the Michael Thomas role in a Joe Brady Saints system with Teddy Bridgewater at the helm. So to me, you're getting him mid-third round. Typical safe wide receiver one that you can get after getting 2 running backs in the first 2 rounds. I mean, it's a no-brainer. So go scoop up DJ Moore.
Yeah, and DJ Moore, unlike Michael Thomas, I think he's better than Michael Thomas in this area, is great after the catch too. So if they're going to get DJ Moore the ball in short areas, like with like a low average depth of target guy like Teddy Bridgewater, who's a good quarterback in that kind of system, which he's still in, that he came from the Saints, is the same system he ran in New Orleans. So if you think, I know myself personally, I was like, oh, Teddy Bridgewater going anywhere other than the Saints, it's like the perfect system for a quarterback. But I mean, it's basically the same system. The only difference is his offensive line isn't quite as good. So I definitely love DJ Moore is like my wide receiver 8. I'm all aboard this take. If you didn't pick him, I was going to. So
I have him at 7 too, so I'm all aboard as well.
Yeah, like DJ Moore, to me, like this team's going to throw the ball a lot too. They have the worst secondary in the NFL. So it's all aboard the Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore trains because they're going to get 150 targets each.
Love DJ Moore, but segue into round 4. You want to mention your 2 guys you got first, and I'll mention my 2 after you.
Yeah, we'll try and run through these a little bit quicker. So on the screen right now, you'll see the round 4 ADP. My first guy to me that jumps off the screen right away, and this is why I take running backs early, is because I can get DJ Moore, Mike Evans in the 3rd round, and I can get Adam Thielen in the 4th round. Adam Thielen's my wide receiver 9 right now, and seeing as much as volume as Adam Thielen is going to see this year is just, he's way too low for the amount of volume that is so easily projected to him. He has 110 vacated targets in the offense with Stephon Diggs gone. And when Diggs was out of the lineup, he nearly averaged 11 targets per game. For a guy in the mid 4th round, if you go if you go 3 running backs to start your draft, if he's your wide receiver 1 or your wide receiver 2, you're just laughing. Like, it's yes, please, all day. He might have the highest team target share in the NFL next year. Like, I know his offense is run heavy, but I honestly don't give a shit because he's going to have like a 30% target share. Justin Jefferson's a good prospect, but I expect him to struggle his rookie year because he's not a natural he's not natural at getting off the line of scrimmage and beating press coverage, and he needs to play in the slot. Well, the Vikings are going to run a lot of 12 next year, and they're not going to have a lot of slot opportunities for Jefferson. So if he's on the field in 2 wide sets, he's going to be on the outside, and I don't expect him to perform well his rookie year.
Yeah, I mean, that's also coupling with the fact that while Adam Thielen was hurt last year, I mean, we saw what he was able to do with Stephon Diggs. I mean, anybody trying to expect Justin Jefferson to step in immediately and take what Stephon Diggs was able to vacate is just a fool's errand. I mean, Stephon Diggs is easily one of the top 10, maybe 12 if you want to go that deep, talented at the position in the NFL. So losing him is a big loss for the overall offense, but it's a big gain for Adam Thielen in terms of he's going to be relied on plenty by Kirk Cousins without that type of target monster in the lineup beside him. So smash that Adam Thielen ADP. Again, he's my wide receiver 11. They're all kind of in the same range, but getting a guy like that in the 4th round when some of the guys at the running back position going in the late 2nd, early 3rd, mid 3rd, like that's why you take your running backs early and then get your guys like DJ Moore, Mike Evans, Adam Thielen later on. So
yeah, 3rd, 4th, 5th round is just prime wide receiver territory. Like the wide receivers you're getting there are guys that have top 5 upside at the position. Both Adam Thielen and DJ Moore have top 5 upside at the position.
For sure. Segueing to another receiver that I absolutely love. I've been pumping his pumping his hype on the channel as well. Not sure if I mentioned him exclusively, but just kind of want to bring him through to you guys. Similar to Adam Thielen, another underappreciated receiver in the league. It's Allen Robinson of the Chicago Bears. I mean, you're looking at this guy. He's easily one of the most underappreciated receivers in the entire league. And flat out as a talent, like people don't realize actually how good he is. I mean, he's going in the 4th round right now with an ADP of 38. It's just insane. So 97 catches last year, despite playing in a dumpster fire of a system that Chicago was representing. And he was a top 10 receiver last year, yet he's going as a wide receiver 13 off the board. So just talking about A-Rob, I mean, I love me some A-Rob. If you're in position to get him as your wide receiver 2, perhaps, in the 4th round, say you go RB first 2 rounds, you get a guy like Mike Evans, DJ Moore in the 3rd, and you get a guy like Allen Robinson or Adam Thielen in the 4th. I mean, your team is set up. So you're getting the guy that presents legitimate 100-catch upside with Nick Foles this year, and some of the mediocre running backs are going ahead of them right now is just insane. So, yeah, get your
teammate going ahead of him. Is Montgomery going ahead of him?
Let me check that right now. I believe he is going.
He's going a couple picks after him, but still, like they shouldn't even be going in the same range. What the fuck has David Montgomery ever done?
How is David Montgomery going a few picks after Allen?
No, I don't understand it. The next guy we'll get into here is Calvin Ridley's in the 4th round as well. And if you listen to any fantasy advice, everyone loves Calvin Ridley this year, and there's a good reason why. It's because he averaged 10 targets per game when Sanu and Hooper weren't in the lineup in 2019. Hurst is there, but we all love Hayden Hurst, but he could be Trey Burton of the Chicago Bears a couple of years ago. Like he might completely flop, and if that happens, Calvin Ridley is going to be like a top 8 receiver probably this year in fantasy. He wasn't even a full-time starter when Sanu was there. He only started 10 games last year. In those games that he started, his numbers paced out to 126 targets, 1,216 yards, 11 touchdowns. He would have ranked the number 3 wide receiver behind Chris Godwin and Michael Thomas last year in half PPR leagues had he started the whole season, or Sanu been traded early. He was incredible last year. He's been efficient touchdown scorer his whole career. His 2 years in the league, he scored as many touchdowns as anyone their first 2 years in the league. And he plays a perfect role. He never gets the number 1 corner because they're always focused on Julio Jones. His offense is going to throw the ball like crazy. There's enough room for him and Julio to both be top 10.
For sure. I mean, again, this team led the NFL in pass split last year, 66.7%. You mentioned Dirk Cutter. There's no reason to believe that that's going to decrease. Dirk Cutter is a pass-centric coach since he's been on the Bucs, since he joined the Falcons. There's no reason why that should differ at all. So you're getting a guy with Calvin Ridley who legitimately has a Chris Godwin-type ceiling this year if he's able to hit. I honestly, truly believe that. So,
the NFC South is just all we do is throw the ball in the NFC South. That's just how it works. So, you figure the defense is so bad in Atlanta. It's so it's bad in Carolina. Tampa Bay's defense is unproven still. Everyone's NFC South matchups this year are going to be 45-40 every single fucking game because that's how we operate the South. We all have gunslinger quarterbacks and elite receivers on every team. So, anytime that the Falcons play an NFC South team, you know that the NFC South team opposite them is going to be able to put up points, and the Falcons are capable of doing it themselves.
For sure. So the upside of Calvin Ridley is tremendous. Kind of breaking off this wide receiver cycle we've had in these middle rounds. I'm going to go with DeAndre Swift as a value simply because he's going off as the RB26, I believe that says, RB27 off the board right now. Regardless, you're getting him maybe 4th round does seem fair if you're looking at it on face value, but some of the running backs he's going after is just insane to me. So with Swift, you're getting a guy who's basically a consensus top 2 running back prospect in the draft. He landed in a situation in the top 40 with a clear role for him, yet people want to push him down their rankings. I don't understand it. So my comp for him was Alvin Kamara. I mean, obviously, you can't comp anybody to what Alvin Kamara was able to do their rookie season, but just the way they play. I mean, he's a smooth runner with incredible vision, good in the open field, and he, in general, he's just elusive. He's a good player. He's slippery. So when you're talking about DeAndre Swift, Kerryon Johnson averaged over 16 touches per game for Detroit last year. And DeAndre Swift, in my opinion, is such a far superior prospect. It's not even close. So when you're talking about DeAndre Swift, obviously he's not going to absorb that full 16-touch workload right off the bat. But if he's able to provide you a 12 to 15 touch per game baseline that I think he can easily get, he's going to overcome this draft spot and ultimately a bunch of the players that are currently going ahead of him. So you're getting a guy like DeAndre Swift who ultimately, in my opinion, once he cements his role in the offense, legitimately has top 15 upside at the position. So
Yeah, and Patricia wants to run the football. Like he just hasn't had the defense that allows him to do so, and his quarterback is so good that he might as well just throw it. But I mean, I know losing Darius Slay probably doesn't mean your defense is getting better, but Jeff Okuda is a super prospect at corner. They brought in a bunch of Patriots guys like Van Noy and all these guys that maybe they're able to run their system finally. So I definitely like the rushing attack to see more of a volume increase, especially if Swift is super effective. They're going to feel the need to give him the ball. So segueing into round 5 here, we'll put the ADP up as well. The first guy that stood out to me is DJ Chark. I mean, you guys have already heard me talk about DJ Chark a lot. 600 pass attempts are a lock for the Jaguars. Like, they're going to be a god-awful team. Probably have a top 5 pick. The state of their defense is brutal. Fournette's going to be inefficient if he even is on the team by week 1. And Chark had an obvious connection with Gardner Minshew, who was an elite deep passer last year. Yes, Gardner Minshew was an elite deep passer last year. And DJ Chark owns that area of the field. He had an air yard market share amongst the best in the entire NFL. So wide receiver, 16 or something? No, that's where I have him ranked. Sorry, he's going off wide receiver 24. Wide receiver 16 is where I have him ranked. So I am very comfortable with him in round 5 as possibly my wide receiver 2, 3, flex spot, whatever. He's a steal where he's going.
Yeah, I agree with Chark. Again, we mentioned him on a previous video that the volume's going to be there. The clear rapport he has with Minshew is going to be there. And simply, like, he's a third-year receiver who's stepping in with who's going to be a second-year quarterback by the time the season starts. They're naturally going to gain a rapport as both those players mature. So ultimately here, you're getting Chark basically at his floor. So take him here basically, wide receiver 24, you said? It's just insane value to me. I mean, he can pass that total in his sleep. So similar to passing that total in their sleep. We got to actually this may be a little bit of a cop-out because he's the first pick of the 5th. But even if, like, first pick of the 5th for this guy, wide receiver,
he should be a third-round pick.
He should. Wide receiver 18 off the board. It's Robert Woods of the Los Angeles Rams. Again, I mentioned it similar to Allen Robinson. I have these guys similar ranked. With Robert Woods, you are getting a consistent top 15 wide receiver in the 5th round, who basically he averaged almost 20 PPR points per game in the final 8 weeks last year once they switched to 12 personnel with Tyler Higbee at tight end, despite only recording 2 touchdowns on the season. So, I mean, the regression is going to happen positively at the touchdown department. And yet he was still able to overcome that through consistency, through his 90 catch total, through almost 1,200 receiving yards last year. Ultimately here, he's just a consistent wide receiver 1 candidate that you're going to be able to get at the 501. That's just a joke to me. I mean, some of the running backs going in this round, you're comparing to Robert Woods. Like, I don't know. I can't fathom how a guy like David Montgomery is currently going ahead of Robert Woods.
No, absolutely not. Robert Woods missed time with personal issues last year too. So his head wasn't even in it, and he still put up 1,200 yards. That was probably his floor last year. He's probably gonna have 1,400 yards and 6 touchdowns this year, and he'll probably be a top 12 receiver because he's always a top 12 receiver. So Robert Woods, I mean, I don't know why he's not a sexy name. He should be based on his consistency and how he performs. Obvious pick to me. If you didn't pick him, I was going to pick him too. So Devante Parker is the next guy that I have up. Again, you guys have heard me talk about Devante Parker. He's a target of mine in these rounds. He was wide receiver 2 in fantasy last year when Fitz took over the job for good from Josh Rosen. And because of how he performed, he was rewarded by the front office. He got a new contract extension. This should be still a high volume passing game. The running game improved a little bit, but I mean, the defense is still young and the offensive line's still young. So the rushing game and the defense might force them to throw still at a pretty decently high clip. And their offense should take a step forward in general, just because the coaching staff has an extra year to get everyone on the same page. And the splits with Preston Williams, I know that's everyone's concern with him. It doesn't concern me as much because if you dig deeper into the splits, 3 of those 8 games that were with Preston Williams were Josh Rosen was the quarterback. So Josh Rosen and Preston Williams, you saw it in those games. Preston Williams' best 3 games of the year were when Josh Rosen was in those games with him. And it was probably because they were both second-teamers in training camp and were able to build a rapport that way, whereas Parker was a first-teamer with Ryan Fitzpatrick, and that's how they were able to build a rapport. So Josh Rosen isn't the quarterback next year. Ryan Fitzpatrick is. And when Tua plays, he's going to love Devante Parker because Devante Parker makes defensive players of the year look like a piece of shit. So smash Devante Parker in the 5th round. And Williams might not even be ready for week 1. We don't even know. He tore his ACL late in the season. So either way, to me, whether you think the concerns with with Williams are concerning or not, he's at enough of a discount that it doesn't even matter. Because if that narrative didn't exist, that his splits with Williams were were bad, then he would be a late third round pick. And I've seen him go that high. A lot of people are very high on him.
Yeah, I mean, I like Parker as well. Again, you're talking about a guy who ultimately the stigma around Parker was, oh, he didn't produce in his first 4 years in the league. I don't know if he's going to be able to come back to what he was able to do in his breakout year. I got burned about him so many times in the past. I don't want to go back to him. Listen, get that fucking shit out of your head. He broke out for a reason. It's because he's a talented player. The reason why he didn't break out before that is because he had injury concerns, inconsistencies on offense.
Adam Gase was his fucking coach.
Like, to me here, like, people just play into fucking stigmas so easily that ultimately they let players like fucking Devante Parker fall because of that. Take him. I mean, it's just a plain value.
Obviously, he's an outlier, obviously. No one breaks out in their fifth year, but, like, there was actual reasons why he didn't break out. He was a good player his whole career. Like, he had games in, like, his second, third year where you're like, oh, there's Devante Parker. Like, yeah, like, this is the guy I saw at Louisville. Like, he looked good, like, his first couple of years. He just had Adam Gase as a coach. And, I mean, you saw it with Kenyon Drake. You saw it with Ryan Tannehill, and you saw it with Devante Parker. Adam Gase ruins everything. So, like, without Adam Gase, Devante Parker broke out, Ryan Tannehill broke out, and Kenyon Drake broke out. So we'll move into Kareem Hunt, who's your next guy here.
I mean, if you guys are fans of the channel, you know this is such a fifth round of my guys, Robert Woods and Kareem Hunt. Just touching upon Kareem Hunt, I mean, it really shouldn't be. It really should be a no-brainer at this point that you're getting highway robbery here. So again, with Kareem Hunt, he's going off as the RB29 off the board. Based off last season, he was the RB21 in points per game when he played. So he was an RB2 when he played. So his floor on standalone value is already higher than when he's being taken. They bring in run-dominant head coach and Kevin Stefanski, who's ultimately going to improve his usage regardless. Because, I mean, Kevin Stefanski, third in the league last year in run splits, 51.7%. That's probably going to stay the same, especially when you got Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb in the backfield, Nick Chubb was still there last year, yet Kareem Hunt was still able to produce. I don't know what the stigma is. Oh, he's a handcuff. He doesn't present RB2. Bull fucking shit. He did it last year in a system that ultimately threw the ball more than they will this year. Not to mention, we're not even talking about the upside he does have as a handcuff, even reverting from the standalone value. Kareem Hunt will be a top 5 running back in fantasy football if anything were to happen to Nick Chubb on a weekly basis. So ultimately, you get a guy with top 24 standalone value, top 5 upside if anything were to happen to Chubb as the RB20 off the board. Do the math, guys. It makes no sense. Similar to the fucking Austin Ekeler shit. Do your actual math. Don't let these fucking pundits tell you narratives that generally don't make any sense.
Yeah, for sure. And you didn't even mention the fact that they added probably the best run blocking right tackle in the NFL in Jack Conklin. And they added Jedrick Wills, who's a great run blocker as well. And you mentioned the scheme is going to improve from a run perspective as well. So, I mean, Nick Chubb and I like Nick Chubb this year. I'm not like totally high on him. This is why. Is because I think Kareem Hunt's going to do really well in the system as well. So moving into round 6, we'll put the ADP up on the board so you can see it. Our first guy I'm talking about here is Deebo Samuel. He's mini Chris Godwin. He's literally mini Chris Godwin. He reminds me exactly of Chris Godwin coming out of school. Except he won't have to wait till year 3 because he doesn't have Deshaun Jackson, Adam Humphries in his way when he's trying to break out. He has the opportunity this year to break out and become a dominant receiver in the league. I think, personally, they drafted Ayuk to fill the role that they carved out for Deebo Samuel last year. I think Deebo Samuel is going to move into a more traditional number 1 receiver type role in San Francisco's offense. I mean, like, he's a playmaker. He forced the second most missed tackles after the catch last year behind his teammate George Kittle, which is just fucked because he's a tight end. But
George Kittle's an animal.
He also ranked number 12 in the NFL in yards per target. He could take a huge step forward in this offense, especially if the defense isn't as dominant as it was last year, and Jimmy has to throw more than 8 times a game, which was actually the case last year sometimes.
For sure. I mean, not to mention, we all fell for the Marquise Goodwin hype a couple years ago. Well, Deebo Samuel's actually a fucking good receiver.
Yeah, and Jimmy's good, too. I don't know why people Deebo Samuel had one of the best catchable target rates in the league. It's because Jimmy's actually an accurate quarterback. He's actually a good quarterback. It's just because he doesn't put up huge fantasy stats that no one likes him. It's which is true. I don't like him in fantasy either, but he's actually a good quarterback, and he can support Kittle and Deebo Samuel. He's not just like a one-weapon quarterback like Marcus Mariota or something.
For sure. Not to mention, I mean, Deebo Samuel is the wide receiver one. Obviously, Kittle's the weapon one, but Samuel's the wide receiver one in a Kyle Shanahan system. He's going to get schemes. He's going to get schemed some nice plays. in general. So when you're talking about Deebo Samuel, again, he proved last season. I mean, wide receiver 29 and what was basically limited at the beginning of the season. He ultimately broke out at the end of the year. You're getting him basically at his floor here. So take that value. I mean, I really like Deebo Samuel, especially the potential he's going to be able to have growing into his role in the second year of that offense. Give me that. So another guy similar to Deebo entering his second year that I don't think I've stopped talking about on this channel since we actually brought it up is Terry McLaurin, wide receiver for the Washington Redskins. The fact that he is the wide receiver 26 off the board is absurd. So just talking about Terry McLaurin, everybody knows about his rookie season in Washington. 58 catches, 919 yards, and 7 touchdowns. And what was actually 14 games. People don't even people always fail to realize that. Because, again, you're not supposed to project a 14-game sample size to a 16-game pace. But for context, let's just do it just so people can see what he was actually on pace for. 66 catches, 1,050 yards, 8 touchdowns. If he were to have posted that stat line, there's no doubt.
Basically what A.J. Brown did.
There's no doubt on my mind he'd be going ahead of A.J. Brown if he did have those numbers. So, I mean, arguably, he did that in arguably the worst situation of any alpha wide receiver last year. Not to mention, people aren't even talking about this enough. They're bringing in Ron Rivera, where if you actually look at the history of Ron Rivera in terms of fantasy success, he's been able to support wide receiver ones. Steve Smith throughout the end of his career. DJ Moore in his breakout year last year. And for whatever reason, Kelvin Benjamin was fucking relevant under him. I don't know how that's a thing, but Kelvin Benjamin was relevant. If you need any other indicator, I don't know what to tell you, because Kelvin Benjamin is a bum and was able to produce 1,000 yards under Ron Rivera. So if that doesn't tell you anything, then you guys got to fucking do some more research, because I don't know. But Terry was even better than the statistics would show. I mean, he was missed multiple times down the field. He was open, deep on routes. Probably could have had another 3 touchdowns, a couple hundred yards. I mean, he could have had a monster season if he was hit. So ultimately here, you're getting a guy who is basically being drafted at his absolute floor at wide receiver 26.
Yeah. Haskins isn't going to be worse than he was last year. Like, Haskins was awful last year. Like, he's going to get better. Like, he's a second-year quarterback. Apparently, he's been, like, as much as no one wants to believe shit like this, is like he's in the building all the time and he's working real hard at his craft. Terry McLaurin has said this himself. The offense should improve because I think the weapons improved. Hopefully, Geis can stay healthy. Hopefully, Steven Sims is something that can help. Antonio Gibson, maybe. Calvin Harmon, like Gandy Golden. Like, I think the offense should be a little bit more productive instead of like a sluggish piece of shit like it's been the last couple of years. Yeah. So, and McLaurin's the guy there. I don't care about while those guys help the offense, they don't eat into Terry McLaurin. They eat into each other.
For sure. I mean, like, anybody who's trying to argue that Terry McLaurin is not the alpha on the offense simply didn't watch the games last year. The way this guy was able to conduct himself as early as week 1, like, it's just insane. You don't see a third-round rookie step onto the field and be the best player on the field. Like,
yeah, week 1, too. Week 1. You normally we're like, you know how many times you've heard me say rookie running backs and shit? Well, rookie receivers even more rare. And rookie receivers who are third-round picks should not come out week 1 and be like a top 10 fantasy receiver on the week. Like, it's going to happen this year with Ruggs. But other than that, it shouldn't happen. But, yeah, anything else on McLaurin, or I'll get into my last guy, who's also a second-year receiver.
I just want to touch up one last thing. Again, I mentioned wide receiver 26 off the board for a guy who ultimately, in my opinion, is going to have right around top 15 value, if not higher. If Haskins is able to take that next step, again, as I mentioned with DJ Moore, I wouldn't be surprised if Terry McLaurin, when it's all said and done after this year, is going to have top 10 type value at the position, because that's how much I believe in the talent of this guy. Like, he's a fucking animal.
Yeah, he's awesome for sure. And another second-year receiver, this is just a theme of this round, is Hollywood Brown. And Hollywood Brown, man, when he played, he was incredible because he did not play. Like, he was in a bad situation last year because his team was like super good. They ran the ball at a super high rate, which they'll probably still do. But Hollywood Brown wasn't healthy. He wasn't healthy during the draft process. He wasn't healthy during the season. He was not healthy. And hopefully, obviously, we don't know his health. I'm not his doctor. I don't know what his foot's like. But if he's healthy, which shouldn't be too much of an issue, in the 7 games in which he played 60% of the snaps or more, and he played less of those snaps because he was a rookie and because he was also banged up, he posted 7.5, like nearly 8 targets a game, basically. And that's 123 target pace for a guy who's probably one of the most explosive weapons in the league. This metric also excluded his week 1 game where he played like 10% of the snaps, but caught like 3 touchdowns against the Dolphins. So he was banged up as hell last year. And he was also a rookie. He has the ceiling, in my opinion, in the offense that he's in. The team's going to score a crazy amount. No one's worried about him. They run the ball so much that the play action game is going to be working like crazy, and he's the perfect guy for the offense to stretch the field. He can be a Djax type. Like he can be like when Djax was in Philadelphia in his prime, wide receiver 2 with week-winning upside week in and week out that you put into your flex spot or your wide receiver 3 if you have 3 receivers in your league. I love Hollywood Brown at his value. I don't think he should be going too much higher than this, but where he's going right now is perfect value for if you're going to wait on receiver a bit and get him as like your 3rd or 4th guy.
For sure. He's the classic upside pick. I mean,
yeah,
you could take your safe receivers. It depends on your strategy. Obviously, if you want to, if you wait on the receiver position, you get like an Edelman. Okay. I don't mind it, but
I would take Edelman straight up over him.
I would,
because I think Edelman does have decent upside for someone who's not perceived as having upside. I think he does have some, but yeah, Hollywood Brown, like, I mean, he's going, like, AJ Green's going 1 spot behind him. It shouldn't even be in the same conversation.
Guys, how many times do I have to say it?
T.Y. Hilton's going ahead of him.
Stop drafting AJ Green and T.Y. Hilton. Like, what upside do you guys buy into? I don't.
Stop yelling at them. It's not them. It's other people.
Okay, you guys are smart enough. You guys watch us.
All right. Do you have anything else on Hollywood? Or
I just want to touch up on real quickly. I don't know how many times I can say just want to touch up on, but no homo. Okay. Anyways, I love Hollywood Brown. I mean, he's such an upside play again. He similar to Deebo. There's an alpha tight end in the offense, but ultimately here with Marquise Brown, similar to Deebo again, you're getting a guy who is going to step up as a wide receiver 2. He's going to mature into that role as the wide receiver 1 on the offense. And in general, I mean, he's such a talented player. I love talent, as you guys know on the channel. With Lamar Jackson, last year's MVP, ultimately throwing him the ball. So take your Hollywood Brown, massive upside. Again, no brainer here.
Great players on great offenses. Sometimes it's not hard. If you get pieces of the Ravens offense and the Chiefs offense and the Niners offense and the like these teams are going to be good for a reason because they're good teams. So make sure you guys check out what we got. Anything else?
I was going to say, you mentioned the Chiefs offense, so stay tuned for next week's values because I'll bring up a little member that I've mentioned in the past on this channel who I really like on that offense. So.
For sure. So make sure you guys are checking out everything we're doing. We're dropping a draft guide July 6th. It'll be just stocked full of value. It won't just be your typical draft guide with sleepers and busts and breakouts. It will have those things, but it'll also have plenty more. So make sure you guys are tuned in for that. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. And please comment. Comment as much as you guys want. It helps us more than you know, and we love engaging with you guys. We'll answer your comments lickety-split. So make sure you guys are doing all that, and definitely enjoy your Thursday and take it easy.
Peace out, y'all.